Hello, my name's Derek McLeod. I'm an electrical assessor at Hertford Regional College, and welcome to one of my YouTube videos put together to support electrical apprentices on their apprenticeship journey for City and Guilds 5357 Level 3 qualification. Whether you're just doing the NVQ side, or whether you've come from Level 2, or you're doing the full Level 3 qualification, whatever the length of your journey, you'll need to be producing evidence for your portfolio for the 6 units to demonstrate your workplace occupational competency. All part of preparing your portfolio, ready to be completed, ready to go for your endpoint assessment. And if you're on this journey, your endpoint assessment looks like the new AM2S, which by the time you get there, there'll be some slight changes to the current one. I think they'll include a professional discussion with some of the items that we'll come and look at as part of this presentation and some of the other changes I've made to the videos. I'm having to update my videos because of the new changes from City and Guilds on this new pathway. They're not too dramatic between the last qualification handbook and workplace logbook to the current one, but there's some significant changes, and I'll come on to talk about those in the next slide and in my next updated presentations for the 6 units for your NVQ. So here we go. All we're looking at here is the front covers of 2 booklets that, if you're on a NVQ or apprenticeship journey, I suggest that you have paper copies of both of these documents. Now, the qualification handbook is available on the City and Guilds website. It includes both the technical units for your whole qualification and the workplace units for your occupational competency or NVQ. So we've got the front cover of that, and we've also got the front cover of the workplace logbook. The workplace logbook, as it suggests, is focused on the 6 units that you will be demonstrating your competency in the workplace. Now, that may be available to you through your training provider or your assessor, because on the City and Guilds website itself, it's a password protected document. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. But that is a useful document to keep as a paper copy, just to prompt you in how you go about collecting your evidence. But we'll come on and talk about that in the next few slides. As I say, this presentation is for the health and safety for Unit 102, and we'll look at some of the bits that you need to be aware of in collecting and presenting your evidence. Okay, so the slide says some ideas, and really it's some ideas on how you're going to capture, how we're going to ensure that you're capturing the right evidence. And really for this unit, okay, is the stipulation from City and Guilds is for this unit you're observed on a minimum of 2 occasions. Now, that observation will be face to face on at least 1 occasion. So your assessor will physically be at your workplace observing you there and capturing this evidence for this unit. And it's possible on another occasion, so you have to do it on a minimum of 2 occasions, that your assessor might choose to record that evidence through something like Teams. Now, in planning this observation, your assessor will need to ensure that we've got an electrical task being carried out. So really, the observation won't just be on you being safe in the workplace, abiding by the risk assessment and method statement. You need to be doing an electrical task, such as first fixing or second fixing, or possibly inspecting and testing. So that's an absolute must. You can't just produce evidence for 102 in isolation. And what else is new with this City and Guilds update? Well, on at least one occasion, the evidence must occur in a commercial or industrial setting. So that's a significant change, and that applies straight across the 6 units for workplace evidence. If you're working solely in a domestic environment, you will not be able to complete this NVQ. It's so important that you capture evidence from an industrial or commercial setting to complete your portfolio. So let's be absolutely clear. Domestic electricians alone aren't going to be able to complete this level 3 qualification. Now, if you think about it, your endpoint assessment, okay, is going to reflect that as well. So if we think about domestic environments where we're on a single phase supply, well, your endpoint assessment is going to be on a 3-phase installation. So not only is it essential to complete your portfolio, but really that's the type of work that prepares you well for your endpoint assessment anyway. Now, I haven't in any of these video presentations set out to provide an exhaustive list of all the criteria, because that's contained within both the qualification handbook and the workplace logbook. You need to be aware of the performance criteria so that when you're evidencing something, you need to apply it to that performance criteria and understand, what it is you're evidencing. I've also included on this slide here the minimum supplementary evidence required. Now, you won't read this in the qualification handbook. That's why it's important to reference the workplace logbook. So you must produce a risk assessment and method statement as part of this unit. There'll also be relevant photographs. Now, because it's going to be through direct observation, those photographs might be in video form as well as photographs. And that will validate the evidence on your portfolio. Now, it's a level 3 qualification. So again, and I'm thinking back to a lot of on-site assessments that I've been on myself, and previously, okay, it's possible to have more evidence from a domestic setting. And I can't tell you how many times I've been to a setting where, for a small contractor, there hasn't been a risk assessment and method statement available for me to look at on site. If you're familiar with the legislation, you might yourself know that on certain occasions you don't have to have a written risk assessment. For example, when there's less than 5 people, you need to do one, but it doesn't need to be in a written format. And that's been quoted to me on a few times. Absolutely correct. I'm talking to you now as the electrical apprentice. This is the standard expected by City and Guilds. You must produce a written risk assessment and method statement at the time of your assessor visit. That's the standard expected for a level 3 qualification. So whether you legally have to have one, whether your employer legally has to have one, because they might be a one-man band, one-person band. Okay, doesn't really matter, does it? Because you need it for your qualification. That's all that matters. So please ensure that one is available for your assessor when they visit you on site, because your assessor has to see you work in accordance with your risk assessment and method statement. And you should expect your assessors to ask you questions that arise from your risk assessment and method statement. For example, on how you dispose of waste material and levels of PPE for various tasks. Okay, all of those will be stated in your risk assessment and method statement. Your assessor is going to look through it when you produce it on site, and they're most likely going to ask you questions. So make sure you're prepared for that visit. That applies to any of the units you NVQ. Always be prepared for your assessment, for your observation visit. You will also notice behaviours are down here, and these are numerical, aren't they? B1, B2, B3, all the way up to B7. Does it mean anything to you? Okay, possibly not whilst you're quite reading this slide. We'll come on to look at them in the next slide, but they are naturally occurring. And as you're being observed in the workplace, as you're producing evidence for your portfolio, some of these will be ticked off by your assessor. These behaviours will also form part of your endpoint assessment. And there's a slight change to the endpoint assessment now on this new pathway. You're going to have I think it's a 60 or 90 minute professional discussion at the AM2S Centre, at your endpoint assessment centre. Okay, and behaviours is something that they'll be evidencing whilst they're having that professional discussion. So let's look at that in the next slide. So we've got behaviours, as I mentioned in the previous screen. So what are these behaviours? Well, you can read the list here. We've got 8 behaviours. For each unit, it will be stipulated clearly the behaviours you'll be expected to meet through the production of your workplace evidence. For here, we have the requirement that you will evidence behaviours B1 to B7. If you actually look at them, they're quite naturally occurring. So, for example, B1, you're going to contribute to safe outcomes. Well, you will be. If you're abiding by the risk assessment and method statement, you're wearing the correct PPE, you're following the correct procedures for that workplace, and that naturally occurs. Okay, behaviour 2, B2, the correct use and the correct disposal of work waste. Again, that will be often stipulated in the site procedures, in your risk assessment and method statement. And we're talking about things there that, that you ensure that you put the correct waste in the correct disposal bin or the correct skip. Most workplaces will separate metals, separate hazardous materials to ensure that that type of waste doesn't go to landfill and that it considers the environment. So there you go. Again, naturally, you're meeting those behaviours through just doing your work and just having that work observed, producing that evidence. And it goes on, up to B7, works productively and cooperatively with co-workers, customers, vendors, so that'll be how you communicate, how you interact with people on site. And your assessor will observe that as part of their visit. And where they don't, they'll ask you questions and have that professional discussion with you as part of that observation visit. So, yes, behaviours are part of this qualification. Often they naturally occur. It's not something that you have to give too much thought to, but be aware of them be aware of what it is your assessor's looking to capture through each unit through your portfolio, and be aware of whether, which behaviours for which unit your assessor's looking to ensure it's evidenced. So that's just an awareness. So that wraps up this presentation, 102. Okay, so we looked at those subtle changes, significant changes in if we look at now the requirement from sitting guilds that evidence has to be, is weighted more towards commercial and industrial settings than, for example, domestic settings. So hopefully you found this presentation helpful. It's part of 6 for the 6 units for your workplace evidence. Good luck on your apprenticeship journey, and good luck in ensuring that you get this portfolio evidence competently, produce your best work. It's your portfolio, it's a reflection of you, and it's something you should take pride in.